a bit of Gridiron 360 with yours truly, Bill and my man Dave. We're going to make a little bit of mystery here tonight, and we're going to take you for a ride right now as we go along on a fantastic voyage. Oh yeah, folks. Unfortunately, it's almost the postseason for college football.
We counting the Army-Navy game? Is that what we're counting here?
We are. It's a wonderful game. But the off-season is drawing near. In fact, we're going to begin the college football off-season. We don't want to kiss it goodbye so soon, but we do want to say hello.
We're dancing, just in case you can't see.
Here's what we're going to do, football fanatics. We're going to start diving into really a preview, a prequel, a starting point for the college football offseason. We're going to run down really a quick rundown of the coaching changes kind of to follow up the cast we did about a week or so ago discussing the coaching carousel, and a lot of those positions have been filled. We're going to zip through those, but what we really want to talk is early national signing period. It's a period is what it is. It's not a day. It's a period for those high school football seniors looking to make their way to the next step in their potential evolution of greatness into college football. So we're going to talk about that. Let's start with the coaching change stuff.
All right.
Why don't you rip through like the first half of these, kind of tell us the school, the person that was there, who they bringing in, and if you have any comments.
All right. Well, I guess first let's just give an overview. They're currently through, should be through today. I haven't heard any big news come out. There were 17 coaching openings in college football. Obviously, some bigger than others in the sense of their impact, particularly on the top end of the recruiting spectrum. Currently, there are 4 jobs that are still open, and that would be probably the 2 biggest jobs would be Boston College and then also Memphis, while Fresno State and New Mexico also remain open, and some of these names have interchanged. I would say probably obviously we talked a lot about USC. It was almost a foregone conclusion after like week 4 that was going to be an opening, and many thought that would be the biggest opening, not only given the the potential of that university, but also the prestige and also the money behind that university. So we'll hit a few of these, probably some of the more interesting ones. I think FSU probably in this group led the way as far as biggest job openings, as they let go of Willie Taggart and brought on the Memphis coach, which created the opening there in Mike Norvell.
That's that domino effect. One leaves, the other one opens, and that one leaves, and the other one opens, and that one leaves, and it happened all over this board.
Yeah, and I think what we found was where before these blue bloods and FSU, I kind of put on the fringe of the blue blood. They're the blue blood based off of what they did in the Bowden era, but traditionally speaking, they're not like with the age and the fine wine of the SEC
Alabama,
schools,
Texas,
and certainly don't have the dollars to
USC,
throw behind it.
Southern Cal.
Yeah, so some interesting ones we saw here. We'll kind of run through the top half. One that's kind of interesting to me that's kind of on the edge, but they are a top 25 playoff team, is App State. App State gets hit again.
Yeah.
They lost Eli Drinkwitz. And I believe Sean Clark is a promotion from within at that university. And kind of going on with Eli Drinkwitz, he took over for Barry Odom after he was let go in Missouri. And what might be interesting about this kind of 6 degrees is that Barry Odom is a name heavily mentioned with the Memphis job. It seems like, based off what I'm hearing, it's between 2 people at this point. That would be obviously Barry Odom coming from Missouri, but also the offensive line coach for Mike Norvell. His name's I'm blanking on his first name. His last name's Silverfield. I think it's Mike Silverfield. And he was the O-line coach, and word is if he doesn't get that job, that likely he may be heading to FSU under Mike Norvell's staff, but he's interviewing actually today for that. An interesting one is and this just seems like it doesn't match real well, is Colorado State moved on from Mike Bobo. You might remember him as a quarterback for Georgia and then spent some time there on the offensive staff. He was let go, and Steve Adazio, who was let go from BC, moved on there.
And BC is one of the ones you said that is yet to find a coach.
Correct.
Along with Memphis. We talked about those.
Correct.
Two. Okay.
And all of this becomes very important. Again, we are 6 days away from early signing period.
Yep.
Which
and
is
just so you know, this isn't signing day. National Signing Day is Wednesday, February 5th, 2020. Now, the new early signing period is exactly that. It's a period. So it actually starts next Wednesday, the 18th, and
is it a full week? I don't know if
goes through. It says what it shows. It technically says it goes through Friday, 12/20. But I think there's a few guys announcing after that. So I'm sure they're just you got to understand some of these kids are still in the playoffs and state championships, and so some of their coaches have come to them and say, hey, why don't we just pump the brakes? Let's focus on what we got to do here, and then you can announce.
Yeah, understand the difference between announcing and signing are two totally different things.
Yep.
The first one is an expectation. The second one is binding.
Yeah, it's actually letter of intent.
Yeah, you can sign a letter and lock yourself in, and you become officially part of that class. And so therefore then all the transfer rules behind that would apply, including sitting out and that type of stuff, or having to apply for a waiver.
So the early signing period, yes, as it does have an effect on these. Go ahead.
All right, so some other ones we'll quick run through. Chad Morris was let go from Arkansas after less than 2 years. If you'll remember him, he's the one that really started the juggernaut offensively in Clemson. He had a rough road there. Arkansas has been rough to a lot of coaches over the last 10 years or so.
And before that, he was at SMU.
Yep.
They had flashes, but it wasn't a great go there either as a head coach. And I love Chad because I'm a Clemson guy. He really vamped. Our offense was never the same after we got him aboard, and we still feel that speed that he brought to the table. So I love him for that, and he's a great coach. But he might be one of those guys, man. He's just a better coordinator than a coach, and as we see, he's already been brought on. Everybody knows Gus Malzahn's pretty much the head cheese, or especially the last say in the offensive play calling at Auburn. Well, from what I read, he's going to relinquish that duty, or as much as I think he can be. I don't think he'll ever fully relinquish it, just because it's too much a part of him, but Morris is the type of guy that it's the same type of offense.
Now, you'll remember, and this is kind of a little bit of 6 degrees, and this is where this stuff gets kind of fun. You talk about Arkansas. There was talk of Malzahn's kind of always been that guy that he gets.
So who they bring in Arkansas?
They brought in Sam Pittman.
Okay.
So here's the thing, though, with what's interesting about Chad Morris, Gus Malzahn. If you'll remember, Gus Malzahn was a high school coach. And there was a big recruit at the time came out, Mitch Mustaine, and headed over to Arkansas and brought him with him as an offensive coordinator. That's kind of how Malzahn got introduced, and the belief was, in order to get this player, you got to bring my coach with you. Fast forward later on, Malzahn ends up getting this job at Auburn, and then there was some talk about, him wearing thin at Auburn this year, though they finished strong, obviously, with the big win against Alabama, that he could potentially be the guy going to Arkansas, because when Malzahn left, I think it was under Chizik, right? He was under Chizik.
He was under Chizik.
When he left, he went to Arkansas State, so he's got Arkansas blood in him. So anyway, you got these two Arkansas guys now in Auburn, so kind of interesting.
Listen,
6 degrees of coaching.
This could be a marriage made in heaven. Again, he's not going to. The play calling is very similar. If not, Chad might even have it going faster. And the thing about Coach Morris is he knows how to really call the right play at the right time, where I think sometimes Malzahn forces the issue just because he thinks he's got that speed and all this, that, and the other. But the other thing is look, you want to know who is one of the primary reasons Deshaun Watson came to Clemson? Chad Morris. And this time, it's not, hey, come to SMU. Hey, come to Arkansas and flourish them out.
It's Auburn.
You're coming to Auburn. So not only do you get Alabama in the Iron Bowl every year, you have the potential to compete for a national championship every year being in the SEC, especially where they are.
So that's kind of an interesting one there. I think another quick spin, and then maybe I'll turn some over to you, is Lane Kiffin. The Lane train has been a maligned guy in coaching ranks. If you'll remember, he had a cup of coffee with the Raiders. He had a cup of coffee with Tennessee, and he ruffled some SEC feathers in the SEC. He is taken off and headed to Ole Miss after what's his name? Matt Luke. Excuse me. Matt Luke was let go. So that could be kind of interesting. And in turn, FAU, who was probably, I would think, a second shot because you had Willie Taggart let go from Florida State, and a lot of talk about him going to USF after Charlie Strong was let go.
I want to make sure.
That sounded like the match that mattered. I mean, that was a program he actually showed the turnaround as opposed to
because he's been there.
A mid turnaround.
Yeah.
He got it all the way to the top, but didn't happen. And in turn, Jeff Scott, your Clemson boy, your co-offensive coordinator, guy with some serious roots in Florida, got the USF job, and that put Willie Taggart behind Lane Kiffin at FAU. So again, another little spin there of guys trying to find the right place for them. I think Taggart does belong in Florida. That is where his original recruiting grounds were at his strongest. So that kind of spins some of those around. So what other ones do you see on here that kind of had some interest?
Look at all those fun ones.
Let's go. All right.
You did, sucker. That's cool. All right, so like you said, Matt Luke loses the Ole Miss job. Lane Kiffin gets that job. The Jeff Scott, Clemson's co-offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach, gets the USF job, and it's fine. Look, he's been with the program for over a decade. He was a player with us. His father, Brad Scott, has been in South Carolina forever as a head coach at USC, South Carolina, and he's been on our staff for 21 years. And from what I understand, he's going with them. Coach said all the best. He's down there, I think, now working on some recruiting, getting things in place, but he will be with us for the postseason. What else? We've got, like you said, Fresno State. Jeff Tedford was the coach there. He's been let go. No one's been filled that void. Bob Davie at New Mexico has been let go. No one's filled that void. The Greg Schiano, Chris Ash was let go.
He was the first.
He
coach.
was the first coach to be let go this year at Rutgers. They bring Greg Schiano back,
which that's an interesting one. Just given that guy's tried to get back into football, and it's been after the Bucs thing fell apart. Had the opportunity with Tennessee, and that was a debacle with the trying to get hired. He was
on staff at Ohio State.
Yep.
And so good to see him back there. Chris Peterson stepping down at Washington. They filled that void with Jimmy Lake. He's an internal guy.
Yeah, I believe
right?
he's the RO coordinator, if I remember correctly.
Let's see. That leaves us three smaller schools. UNLV, Tony Sanchez got let go there. Marcus Arroyo.
Yeah, that's an important one there. And again, one of the things that I think we're really finding out in the last couple of years with college football, you can't just be the top program and say, look, I'm like Ole Miss, for example. I'm an SEC school. You want to come to me and get these guys from these mid-level conferences. Job fit is very important, and we heard a little blurb on the radio. If you know, Marcus Arroyo is from Oregon, was an offensive coordinator with them, and this is a very big change. You know, UNLV has very little standing, and you've given me a little insight into just Las Vegas in general.
I don't know how anyone can play football.
So
this
one, I would say, is a little bit risky. It's a risky move for Marcus Arroyo in this one because, again, you can see, I mean, like Jeff Tedford at Fresno State. Now, mind you, Jeff Tedford was a really hot up-and-coming guy. I think he was at Tulsa long ago, then went to Cal. And he's kind of fallen by the wayside, and in Fresno State is not a big time program, but a solid but not spectacular. The other FSU, and these are the kind of things you have to be careful with, where you can kind of fall into that. Job hopping has not been as productive for some of these guys as you'd think.
Yep. So that was UNLV. You've got Old Dominion University let go of Bobby Wilder and brought in Ricky Rain. Ricky Ron?
Sounds good.
Don't know. And then UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio, they let go of Frank Wilson. They bring in Jeff Taylor.
So again, not most of those are not major coaching moves, but I would certainly say between the mixture of Memphis and FSU, FAU, Ole Miss, those are probably some of the bigger moves, and probably add in Arkansas just in the sense of Chad Morris going to Auburn. That could, spell some interesting things. And probably the last one I'd add to is Jeff Scott, going down there. USF, you can do some things down there. There's a lot of talent down there, and he is known to be an excellent recruiter. So that could be a fun one to watch too as well. So with that being said, we wanted to do this, and really the idea is not to just, go on this long bender about coaching, but this impacts the critical part of the offseason, which has already begun, even though the college football season hasn't officially ended yet, and that is recruiting.
Yes. So we're going to dive into the composite rankings. They're all pretty much very similar. We've looked at Scout and ESPN and Rivals and 24/7. ESPN is the one that seems to be a hair different than most, but the 24/7 composite rankings and Scout and all those Rivals are all pretty much
and the composite. The good thing about the composite rankings is it uses all these sites. Because while for the most part you'll see 80% of the kids that are in the top 100 kind of mix between the two, their positioning can be very different, but also there'll be some kids that show up somewhere that don't show up other places. Because again, there's probably tens of thousands of kids playing high school football every year, and you get guys that slip through the cracks, i.e. Khalil Mack in Buffalo, who is now one of the best defenders in pro football. You get
This
guys
happens.
like that. It does. We miss, and then there's guys that show up really low on the rankings that absolutely blow it up in college. And then the worst case scenario is you just signed a 5-star that plays like a 1-star.
And that happens. I mean, look, we always talk about how important coaching is, especially in the college ranks. Like, these guys could be the number one overall, but if they aren't coached up correctly, then it's all for naught.
Yeah,
Really all for naught. You're wasting talent, and hopefully these kids notice that in their recruiting process, that they find a coach, school, program, system, staff that meshes well to let them grow. That's the one thing that concerns me in this world of socials and, a very entitled youth out there that they want it given to them. You want to find the kids with that drive that want to get better, like working at it every day. This is not the last step.
And the step up to college football is significant, and there are guys that we looked at that are clearly, especially from a size and skill standpoint, stand out amongst their competition.
Mm-hmm.
Some of their competition is pretty poor, and it won't come that easy in college football.
No.
And so it's, do they have the want to when they get a equally good guy across from them that wants to go to war with them and can actually handle them? So that'll be that's kind of the fun part of the development of these kids.
Yep. So here's what I want to do. I want to run through the recruiting classes in terms of rank. We'll just do the top 10 as they stand. For a very long time, the Tigers, my Clemson Tigers, were sitting at number 1. Historic 2020 class, but just yesterday, I believe, Alabama landed a 4-star offensive tackle, Javion Cohen, and that put them right above us. So Alabama currently has the 1 rank in the 2020 recruiting class. They have 24 current commitments, so they're filling up. 3 of those are 5 stars. 17 of those are 4 stars. They have 4 3-stars. So now we fall to number 2. We have 21 commits, 6 5 stars, 9 4 stars, 6 3 stars. In the 3 slot with 23 commitments is LSU. They have 3 5 stars, 14 4 stars, 6 3 stars. Before I continue on, I do want to say Alabama always in the running here as we enter this early signing period, but both Clemson and LSU, as well as Georgia, who sits at number 7, And even I saw a lot of Texas at 6. There's a lot of guys, not just in the top 50, but the top 100 that are very high on these schools. So their rankings can
These are
move
not finished products.
tremendously with some of these commitments that haven't yet solidified their verbal.
Right. And you have to understand something about recruiting if you don't already. It is a point system, and advantage in the point system will be to who has the most space and the most recruits. You want to pay attention to those blue chip players, but their average star ranking, because some classes a school may only be able to bring in 18 scholarships, but if they're bringing in all 4 and 5 stars, they're incredibly high on the list. So,
Correct.
so when you look at this, you got to take it a little bit with a grain of salt. You want to look at the average. Like right now, what you just said. Think about what you said. Clemson has 6
per capita type thing.
Yeah.
Because listen, the past couple of years we've had I think 2 years ago we had 14 kids we signed. Last year it was like 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
One, because we're monitoring the scholarships as they roll over,
Yep.
as guys leave for the NFL, graduate, so forth. But 2, we also wanted to, looking at the underclassmen, the juniors and stuff, and what is upcoming, make sure we had scholarships. I mean, there's several guys still on there, both 4 and 5 star level, that are looking at us, like I said, in those other schools. So the number 4 ranked school is Ohio State with 25 commitments, 2 5-star, 14 4-stars, 9 3-stars. In at number 5 is Texas A&M.
Yep.
Jimbo, he's going into year 3 after this, so he's fully ingrained, and you see it because he's good with the recruiting process. They have 20 commits, 1 5-star, 10 4-stars, 9 3-stars.
Yep.
You want to run down the back?
Sure.
6 through 10.
Number 6, you've got Texas. I would have to slide these one by one. They've got
16 commitments.
16. If you've got that, I'll
Yeah,
tell
I
you
got
the teams
'em.
are.
I
Why
got
don't you
'em.
keep running down? Because
Yeah.
I only have the list
All
in
right,
front
yeah,
of me.
they got 16. They got 1 5-star, 13 4-stars, 2 3-stars.
Okay.
Then at the 7th spot is Georgia, as I mentioned earlier. 14 commitments, 2 5-stars, 11 4-stars, 1 3-star. Again, they have I saw at least 2 or 3 guys in the top 100 that haven't made their verbal, and Georgia's high on their list.
Sure.
Number 8 is Florida, 22 commitments. Dan Mullen getting it on. No 5-stars, but 15 4-stars, 6 3-stars. Understand something. We do want to keep in mind the 4 stars and the 3 stars because, guys like Grady Jarrett, 3-star. Okay, yep. You again, it's about coaching them up. Number 9 is Oklahoma, 19 commitments, no 5-stars, 12 4-stars, 7 3-stars, and rounding out the top 10 at number 10 is Auburn, 20 commitments, 1 5-star, 10 4-stars, 9 3-stars.
And keep in mind, again, we're using, just so you understand where we're getting all this from, it's the 247 composite score, so it draws in from across all the websites, the major websites. There are on the composite right now 28 5-star athletes coming out right now. So I go back to when you see someone like Clemson with 6, you're talking about almost a quarter of the 5-star recruits have verbally committed to Clemson at this point. So understand how big that pool is, and why you're seeing is even as you get down to 6, 7, 8, 9, you're not seeing a lot of 5-stars because there just aren't that many.
Yep.
So important to see.
So what we want to do here now is, and we'll probably do another cast talking about, maybe before this thing drops next week, going through some of these top 50 guys that, just impressive, but that are already verbally committed that we expect to go. Like the number 1 guy, Brian Brisset, he's a D tackle out of Damascus, Maryland, 6'5", 290. He is solid with us. Solid with the Tigers. So, but what we want to do now is Dave and I split up the guys that aren't yet committed in the top 100.
At least have not verbally come out and named the winner.
There are a few guys that I will make mention before we get going that haven't given a verbal, but in terms of what we see, it's 100%. at that school, and I'll drop those right quick. There's about 6 of them. But then Dave and I are going to go through and talk about these guys in order as they rank most recently on this composite top 100 overall, and talk a little bit about the player, give some demographics of him and where he's looking to go, his commitment date, so on and so forth. Like I said, before that, we've got the number 42 overall player, Philip Webb. He's a linebacker out of Georgia. It shows that he is at 100% with LSU, as opposed to these others that is just solid, that the team's logo. This means he's not
verbally come out yet.
But expect it to be done. The number 60 overall player, Andrew Gentry, is an offensive tackle out of Colorado. He is at 100%, though not verbally committed to BYU. At number 71, Alfred Collins. He's a D-end out of Texas. He is not verbally committed, but 100% with Texas. The number 83 overall player, C.J. Stroud. He is a pro-type quarterback out of California. 100% with Ohio State, though not verbally committed. Number 97th overall player, Marcus Dumerville. He is an offensive tackle out of Florida. He is 100% with LSU.
Do you happen to see whether he was any relation?
I don't know. I was going to say check it out,
I'll
see if he's
out.
related to Elvis. He is 100% with LSU, though not verbally committed. And last but not least, number 99 overall player, Antonio Doyle. He's a linebacker out of Missouri. He's 100% with Texas A&M, though not currently verbally committed.
All right. That's a good little rundown. I'm still trying to look for Mr. Dumerville.
That's fine. So what is he? You did find it. He's the uncle. Elvis Dumerville
was his uncle.
And he has a cousin playing at Louisville, you said?
Which maybe that's Dumerville's son.
Oh, yeah. That could make sense.
Cousin.
All right, so cool. So now, again, we have about 6, 7 players each. These are guys in the top 100 that are not verbally committed yet. We don't have that 100%. That's pretty much a guarantee. This is guys that might be leaning one way or the other, might be heavy on one school, but there's still a shot for other schools to dive in. So we're going to rip through those and talk a little bit about these guys, as well as tell you where we project their commitment dates based on what we've seen. So let's dive in, and rather than go in the order that they're ranked, like I said, we'll just kind of shift on and off and just say where they're currently ranked.
Okay.
I'll start it off with he is actually the top guy that isn't fully committed. He's the number 4 overall prospect in the country, and as of today, he is ranked in that number 4 slot. Justin Flowe. Flowe, F-L-O-W-E. He is a 5-star. He's linebacker, in particular an inside linebacker from Upland High School in Upland, California. 6'2", 225 pounds. He is rated as the number 1 overall linebacker in the country, and he is the number 1 overall prospect in the state of California.
Any inklings as to whether he's to play inside or outside?
I mean, he is an inside linebacker. That's how he is listed.
But those things can change.
Yeah, he'd be better served, I think, as that, and you'll kind of hear why. Right now, he is, the last we've seen, he's 80% Clemson. Now, he's been on the Clemson bandwagon for a long time. He's a Northern California kid, but he, over the summer, last summer, it was really kind of down to Georgia and Clemson. Again, Clemson's been the place he seems to want to be. As of late, Southern Cal, USC, has kind of jumped into the mix. And in particular, Oregon. The Ducks are trying to make a run at this kid again. Northern California kid. It would be a great win for them. And though it does still appear, all signs point towards Clemson, he may end up getting stolen by stolen. Is that a word? He may end up stolen.
Yeah, stolen's a word.
He may end up be taken out from under us by the Ducks. I think they're the biggest one we have to worry about at this point.
I've seen a few Twitter shots with him where they're saying that while Clemson is still the favorite, again, all these crystal balls all come from guys following the recruiting nationally, is that there is definitely some smoke to potentially moving somewhere else. But again, at this point, he is still highly rated towards Clemson, or highly crystal ball.
Yep. So I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about this kid. This is a strong young man. He has legs like tree trunks, again, a linebacker, so his size and his weight are pretty good. A lot of people have said he is the best linebacker to come out of the state of California, maybe even the country in like a decade. Very strong young man. He's seen on a lot of his highlight films. And keep in mind, as we look at this, we try to see as much as possible, but understand we're seeing a lot of highlights. Though I really would love to dive into the full games of all these guys. I think that paints a better picture. This is what we got for right now, unless we get more time to dive into those. But he's seen in a lot of his highlight films coming up in run support, making tackles where he's literally suplexing running backs.
Yep.
Okay.
A lot of when we watched this, he was a kid we saw with a lot of tackles that would get flat.
Yes, he wears number 10. He's very aggressive.
Yep.
And I guess, I have a couple things.
And that's not to knock him. It's
no,
just,
I have
he's
a couple
just a violent
things
player
on here that might be something he needs to get better at the next level, but a lot of things that are good. One of those things is the way he's tackling and his angry attitude, his aggressiveness. I don't know if he's cocky. Doesn't seem it. Maybe a little bit. You're not there yet, young man. And yes, like you said, you have to watch that in college football and beyond. Like, you can't suplex these kids, unfortunately. I like seeing it. It's fun. It does show you're strong as hell and you've got massive legs, but you got to watch it. But he is fast and strong. He seems very focused. I think that goes with that aggression. He does tackle well. He is a sideline-to-sideline type running back, and in today's day and age and offensive systems you have to face, that's key. He tackles he doesn't just tackle well. I saw him very well, very sound technically in tackling, especially in space. Okay, he takes good lines if he's away from the ball, good angles to the football. Again, especially in space. He seems to be a very smart guy, which is great, especially at inside linebacker, because that's usually the quarterback of the defense. In terms of his run support, his eyes are really good with reading the plays, keeping him in the backfield, and he's very quick and explosive, not just on stunts, but also getting into the hole to tackle the running back or what have you. Quick feet. He has quick feet, and then he just explodes at the point of attack. He hits hard, hits with authority. Again, I see this kid. He seems to be smart and to be a leader, which is what you need out of your linebacker. Said he's good in run D. He's good at in quarterback contain, the ability to be a sideline-to-sideline guy. He's good in containing quarterbacks inside, when they get outside the pocket, which is great for those running quarterbacks. We see a lot of those. Great tackling in the open field on screens. He seems to have some really good closing speed. The other knock I might have for him is in pass coverage. Might need a little work. Now, again, he's a linebacker, but in today's offenses, these linebackers have to sometimes be covering quick little slot receivers, covering big tight ends. So I wasn't like overwhelmed or nothing jumped off the page in terms of pass coverage with him. But in terms of linebacker ability, he's stud. He's stud, man. I mean, he's got, like I said, legs like tree trunks. His agility is off the charts. He's got great bend and feel for the hole. He keeps his eyes in the backfield, and like I said, when he sees that ball on the run, he finds the hole, finds where the back's going, and explodes through it. Right now, the commitment date I'm showing for him is December 18th at noon. Now, again, he's in California, so I don't know if that's noon Pacific or noon Eastern. If it's noon Eastern, it'll be obviously be 3 Pacific. If it's noon Pacific, then it'll be 9 Eastern. But that's next Wednesday, first day of early signing period. So we will see what happens with Mr. Justin Flo. Will he be a Clemson Tiger? Will he be an Oregon Duck? We will see. Why don't you give us one? Who you got on the board there?
All right, I have got Trenton Simpson. He is an outside linebacker. He's number 29 nationally. He's the number 3 outside linebacker in the country and number 1 in the state of North Carolina. He comes out of Mallard Creek in Charlotte. His measurables, he's 6'3", 224. Interestingly, he was a former Auburn commit. Right now, his crystal ball status is about 93% to UNC. He's had an official and an unofficial in November to UNC, and so that kind of is a telling thing there. When I saw this guy, what's very interesting about his video, and again, it's a struggle. The good thing about these national recruiters is a lot of them do actually get to see these kids in person,
right? And
that's much easier to tell from. But I wanted to get some video on this kid. Interestingly, his video was more than probably about 60 to 65% was on the offensive side of the ball. Again, these top recruits play two ways.
In high school, they play two.
They're
Everybody
just too
but one of the guys I saw was both ways.
Yeah, so what I took from him, and again, I watched the video before I read some of the analysis, and some of it was confirmed by the analysis. He's which was interesting to me for an outside linebacker, a very long strider. He's quick. Or let me say, it's not quick. He's fast. So when he gets his legs moving, he moves.
Guy. That's different than Flo, because Flo is fast, but he's got thick legs. He kind of runs like it. He runs like a
choppier steps.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a running back that kind of resembles the way he moves around. But yeah, it's almost Saquon Barkley-esque. He's fast, but when he kind of runs, it's almost. Yeah, it's choppy.
Yeah, he as a long strider, he's one thing I noticed, he's not very active in the hips. This is not a guy when he was, and I looked at his running style more on the offensive side of the ball only because the limited types of plays they had on video that I saw, which is interesting. You're going to play the outside. They do say that he, is very good at rushing the passer and is quick. But the thing I got off the videos was he most of the time was unblocked.
Yeah.
And so in that, it's very hard to tell.
Look, it's high school. So I felt like I was pretty good in high school, but I was nowhere to the level of these guys. And I wasn't a small kid. Some of these guys are small too.
Yeah.
And these top recruits, they're just men amongst boys.
And even more importantly, it's not like he beat the man off the line of scrimmage. There was no engagement to him on a lot of the plays I saw defensively.
Okay.
Very powerful at the point of attack, but he needs to work on his hand usage. The few times I did see, because again, he's a long strider and he's got speed, he's good at closing, and he can get backside pressure and run down guys around the line of scrimmage.
Okay.
But he's got to be able to at least have shown, and apparently according to some of the evaluation, that he has shown the ability to shed blocks or, to move around guys.
How big is he?
He's 6'3", 224.
Okay,
so he's got some room to put on some size.
And they could throw him up onto an edge rush spot too.
Yeah, and it's good to see a kid that can play with physicality and with speed. When he tackles, he seems to be a pretty sure tackler. He hits for the midpoint. A lot of these things are challenges for kids coming into school.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked about the hand play. Hand play is probably the thing that, especially kids that are superior athletically, don't have to use the hand play quite as much as they're going to have to be taught.
Right.
So it's interesting. He had a visit to Clemson, so you never know with some of that. With that, obviously Charlotte area is not too far down the road from there. But it does look right now like UNC looks pretty locked in on this kid. Certainly a prospect, and on their defense, this would be a kid that could come in and probably start for multiple years. Again, just thinking about who they have there. But again, it just was very interesting to me that a lot of his film was on offense.
Yeah.
And again, that the lack of me seeing his hip movement could lead to some challenges in coverage, but you don't know. You know what kind of how they're going to play him in the system and whether that's going to be a requirement.
Maybe they'll try to flip him to the other side of the ball. Depends on where he goes. I mean, a place like Clemson, he's probably going to be better suited on defense because we have some really big talent.
Tremendous talent, certainly. I do want to say that there is a lot to work with this kid, but there are areas of his game that in order to go to the next level, and, they look at this kid, their projection on him is an early round draft pick. His comparable style-wise is to a Vic Beasley. Very effective in college, hasn't been as effective in the pros, but you can kind of understand the skill set they believe they're working with.
Nice. So he's a 5-star?
I believe he is the top, according to the composite, the top 4-star.
Okay.
So he's just outside of the 5-star.
All right. So, and then my guy, Flo, was a 5-star. Do you have a potential commitment date for him?
Yeah, he is looking to commit at 9 a.m. That's got to be Eastern time since he's in the Eastern time zone on the 18th. So on the first day of early signing.
Excellent. So we have some good stuff coming up next week for this early signing period. I like it a lot. I didn't have a comp for Flo. I don't know where you necessarily saw that in terms of NFL comparison.
We'll have it right here. And again, it got a lot of this is, we're obviously going to be talking about high-end people. I
see. Reuben Foster. Reuben Foster, who's no longer playing, right?
Isn't he the one that's got lots and lots of probs?
Yep.
Lots of probs.
Nice. All right, let's move on to the next guy, and I'll introduce him. And this is a big one right here. He is the number 5, falls in right behind Flo. He was actually higher. He was at like 2 or 3, but he's dropped to 5. Overall, recruit in the country. That is Mr. Jordan Birch, 5-star defensive end out of Columbia, South Carolina. The Hammond School. He's a strong side D end, 6'5", 275. This kid is mammoth. He's the number 2 defensive end overall in the country, the number 1 player in the state of South Carolina. He plays running back on offense.
And he looks like Gigantor playing right. He doesn't look poor.
No.
He just looks so massive for a back.
He has mammoth. He's just a mammoth-sized dude, especially against the competition.
But he looks athletic enough to play it, which is kind of interesting.
So right now, again, my Tigers are in the hunt for this guy, obviously being in the state of South Carolina. He's been high on us for a while. Crystal Ball projections has him around 62% for Clemson. The other team in the mix was our in-state rival, the University of South Carolina Gamecocks. They right now come in at 12% in terms of Crystal Ball projections. Now, got to keep this kid in state. Both of our schools, in particular Clemson, due to our success, have been to lock down the state, especially the top prospects in the state. But as of late, Clemson's lost a little bit of ground, and I'm sure due to their success, and that is Mr. Ed Ogeron and his Louisiana State University Tigers. They're not listed on here. It says 25% undecided. That's LSU. They're making a push hard for this kid. I'm hoping he will stay in state just because the ramifications in the future to let the top prospect or prospects in our little state of South Carolina get away opens doors I just don't want to even go down. We need to keep a lockdown.
Latest predictions from some of the bigger name Southeastern guys are saying this is a South Carolina LSU matchup, which is kind of interesting considering how much he's been warmed. But another thing to keep an eye on is he had an official visit to Alabama in November. He had a visit from the coaching staff, it doesn't say which coach, at Alabama on the 3rd of December, and Nick Saban just went in-house with him on the 9th. So Alabama's making a hard push too. So, again, lots to love about this kid. He is a beast already. He's got all the measurables to go in and play early. But so this guy's there's a lot of people hot on Clemson's trail, but Clemson is just white hot right now on the recruiting trail. So never worth counting them out on this.
No, and right now we've got, like I said, the number 1 overall guy in the country. He's a D tackle, Brian Brisset, and we have the number 3 prospect overall in the country, Miles Murphy. He's also a DN. So to have these 3 guys, same recruiting class, same level, same year, have Brisset inside, and then have Miles Murphy as an edge rusher on one, and then be able to stick Jordan Birch on another, and then potentially have this Justin Flo kid at inside linebacker. Woo!
Yep.
Woo!
Clemson's recruiting class
So
might be historical.
Let's talk a little bit about Jordan Birch. Okay, again, we said the guy is just a mammoth, but I don't anticipate them putting this kid at running back, even though he is athletically gifted enough to obviously play it in high school. He will be a defensive end in my estimation. Like I said, 6'5", 275. He has a fantastic first step because he is a DN. Fantastic. He's kind of a lighter, taller version of Xavier Thomas, one of our current DNs. He's a basketball player, so he's very athletic. In terms of his comp, they said he is. They compare him to Jeffrey Simmons for the Tennessee Titans, right? Very athletic, has long arms. He's got a great feel for the pass rush with both a good bend when he's coming around the edge and balance. So he's able to get that bend and not lose really a step or have to, repurpose himself. His balance is good, very good at stopping the run. One thing I didn't see a lot of, which will be more imperative as he is a defensive end and as he moves into college and even beyond that, is his handwork. There wasn't a whole lot of need for handwork. He has big, strong hands and long arms. When he got his hands on people, he was able to use those long arms. But in terms of against those bigger offensive linemen, those really good tackles, where he might need to, be a little more active with his hands, it's something that he could grow in a little bit. He can run your stunts and twists with ease. He's very quick with his stunts. The kid's got a great motor. I mean, that, there was plays away from him and, on the other side of the ball, and he's got a nonstop motor, especially for a big D end. He seemed to play a lot of 4 technique his junior year in high school, and then senior year played a lot more 3 technique, and he was even, standing up in the 2. But I think his best situation is in that 3 technique or even the 4, but just explode off the ball, off the ground. In terms of, like I said, the hand play may need to improve, but he does, in terms of his hand placement and that punch on the offensive lineman, has a great first punch. And once he gets his hands on the lineman, he has great extension. He's always keeping his eyes in the backfield and watching the football, watching where the play develops. He's able to shed towards the ball very easily when it's coming his way. Like I said before, he tackles well for a big guy. He's just swallows people up. He does seem to have strength off the ball. Mm-hmm. Like I had said, he's big dude, a lot of strength. The other thing, though, I do need, even though he has a great first step, I need to see a little more explosiveness because those edge rushers nowadays, you have guys like Vic Beasley that are just like not as big but really fast, and then you have like your big dudes like your Chase Youngs, okay? But like Chase Young also combines that speed ability too. So like for ultimate success moving forward, you want to have a combination of both.
Yep. Translate speed to power well.
Right. Like I said, he was really good on the offensive side of the ball. There was a lot of tape on that. He's a really good running back. I even saw him throw a pass and catch a pass. So, his basketball player. This guy is extremely athletic. I do anticipate he'll stay in that DM position moving forward, but you could slide him at his size. You can move him into D tackle. He'd be very athletic D tackle. Like I said, we don't know where he's going to go. We anticipate, Clemson has been the team, it seems like, but a few others have crept in late. In the news you just gave, you never want to let Nick Saban get in there last. Commitment date is going to be next Thursday during early signing period. I have December 19th at 11:46 a.m., and that'll be Eastern Standard.
11:46
a.m.
Not 47.
That's correct.
Not
Eastern
45.
Standard. Yep,
46.
Yep. This guy is mammoth, and very athletic, and just needs to improve a little bit on that quick hand work. If he has to do more hand play to unlock from a really tough offensive lineman, and that first step is great, but the continued explosiveness off of that could improve a little bit. But otherwise, there's really not much. Again, whether it's the competition or what have you, he is a man amongst boys.
All right, nice. So you want me to go on to our next man?
Yes, please, sir.
All right, I've got Gary Bryant Jr. All right.
Bryant.
He is the number 57 nationally ranked player. He's number 9 at his position and number 7 in the state. He is a wide receiver coming from Corona, California at Centennial. This is a massive program. This is a national title contender type program.
Yep.
Going up, they go up against teams like John Bosco.
Mater Dei.
Yeah.
They were like number 2 in their conference.
Yeah. These guys are beasts. No shock here that his lean at the moment appears to be to USC. That is Southern Cal out west. Oklahoma's jumped into this one and as a 20% crystal ball, and then about 20% undecided. Amongst those schools are West Coast schools. Arizona, I believe Oregon are some ones in play for him. This kid, he's 5'10 and a half and 164, so smaller guy.
Wide receiver?
Wide receiver,
so
yep.
Maybe a slot.
Yeah, but this is the thing they said on him. They said he's got some room to grow. He's kind of long and lean, though he's not at 5'10 and a half. I wouldn't consider him very long, but at 164, I could see that. One thing they did mention in the evaluation, which is kind of interesting, is he was able to put on 12 pounds of muscle over the last year, which leads to believe that, again, that kind of goes to that could still be growing. What jumped off the page with this kid, of all the things you'd expect here out of slot receiver, what I saw, which I thought was most important, was his toughness. You'd think this guy, he's a scrapper, saw a lot of blocking downfield, which is nice out of a guy, and he was effective in his blocking. And that's a kid that's going to have guys that are bigger than him in the high school area at that size. From him, very, very smooth route runner. His cuts and his steps are very clean. Doesn't have to shuffle when he hits his mark. Puts his foot in the ground and can go 90 degrees very quickly. He's a natural pass catcher. And what I mean by that is his ability to not only hands catch, but he doesn't have to stab at the ball. It's soft in his hands when he catches it. So he plays that way. Again, also, I want to reiterate, he's playing against top competition. So this is not a kid that's, looks great amongst lesser competition. He stands out against very strong competition. And that toughness, I wrote this like 3 times, that he just plays the game with an Ashty streak. One of the things I also noticed is being that small, he goes deep and he does stay underneath. He did it all in the film I saw of him. He's very good at using his body to shield the defender away from the catch and the ball itself. So I thought that was good in the ones that I did see. Now, that being said, I was a little limited in the contested catches that I saw. But again, I think what I saw out of that, why I saw many uncontested, was his ability to run clean routes. Guys struggled to, when he made a break in a move and he ran some double moves, and ran some slants and things like that. Guys just, when he put his foot in the ground, struggled to make that move with him. So this kid, again, I think he's, his comparison is like a Robert Woods, probably a little bit for the USC and the size thing. But I did see that he's the type of guy he's going to fit a role, but he could be very effective in that role.
Okay.
And again, he's going, and the Southern Cal opportunity, which is kind of interesting, is there's going to be a lot of openings at wide receiver there. So he could see some playing time very early on, which I'm sure would be a big draw going to a place like USC.
Sure would. They like it there. Who we got next?
You tell
it's
me.
my
It's
turn.
your turn.
All right. So, and do we have a commitment date from that
Oh,
kid?
my apologies. Yes, we do. He is going to be at the All-American Bowl, and he is going to commit on the 4th of January at that game. So, they announce those when they're going to do it, halftime or in the middle of the game or whatever at that point.
So just to let everybody know, the All-American Bowl is January 4th, 2020 at 1 p.m. in San Antonio, Texas. It is on NBC. And prior to that, the Under Armour All-American game is January 2nd, 2020 at 6 p.m. in Orlando. That usually is on ESPN. That's an ESPN. So there'll be a lot of commits that we run through here that will probably announce or have said they're going to announce at either of those games because they're participating in it.
And again, mind you, given that it's that window, these are not official. This is not signing day. So when we say guys on signing day, they are likely going to sign a letter of intent, which will lock them in. These guys
are giving their verbal.
They're giving their verbal. While most of them stay, it's not a foregone conclusion that when February rolls around that is locked in stone.
Yep. Okay, so I'll move on to the next guy. And what was that guy? That was 5-star, 4-star?
He was a 4-star. All my guys are 4 stars.
Okay, I got a lot of the 5 stars then. Sorry about that, but that's payback for the coaching change conversation.
Don't podcast angry.
All right, so the number 8 overall prospect in the country. His name is Mr. Keely Ringo Star. Keely Ringo, 5-star recruit. He's a cornerback at a Saguaro High School in Scottsdale, Arizona. I tell you, Scottsdale's kind of been Arizona's been a hotbed. It's one of those states that is starting to challenge, other states as like your Georgias and so forth as big recruiting grounds. Really great high school football going on in the state of Arizona. So, cornerback. He is a big one, my friends, and that is what a lot of these defensive coordinators like nowadays. 6'2", 205 pounds. 6'2", 205-pound corner. He's rated as the number 1 cornerback in the country. He's rated as the number 1 football player in the state of Arizona. He's currently leaning Georgia. Crystal Ball projections has him at 92% Georgia, 8% Texas. Okay. Where's the number 7? Again, big cornerback. Talk a little bit about him. Really good in run support. He has a great, strong first punch on wide receivers, especially when he's manning them up and he's right up on the line. He plays wide receiver on offense. In terms of the defensive side of the ball, because that's what he's listed to play, and that for everything you see, that's where he needs to be. Really good in bump and run coverage. Keeps his eyes in the backfield, whether he's in zone coverage or he has a cushion off the wide receiver and man. When he is, he is manning him up. He's very physical at the line, as I said. Maybe doesn't have his eyes in the backfield as much, obviously, because he's manned up, and it's a very, very unique quality to be able to do both, to have that peripheral vision. He has great closing speed on the ball carrier, tackles very, very well. Couple things, though, that I did note. His 40 time, 4.56. Okay? Not bad. Not bad at all. But these kids are getting faster and faster and faster.
It's not elite.
He's a corner. Okay? So he has to cover the fastest guys on the team and the wide receivers. Okay? He's a corner. So, again, really good in the bump and run coverage, really good tackler. But his big frame when he's lined up head-to-head on a receiver, makes it a little bit hard for him to get real low in his stance, okay, which in turn, whether it be that punch off the ball at the line of scrimmage, which he's got a good one, but more so as a corner to be able to flip those hips very quickly and smoothly. You got to get low to flip the hips smoothly and make that turn, especially when you've got to be the one turning around and you've got wide receivers that can fly right by going in one direction. So the fact that he's such a big kid, it does make him getting low in his stance seem to be a little more difficult, which might cause issues in that hip flip. The other thing which goes right into this, along with his speed and the importance of him being able to get better technique flipping his hips, which isn't bad. We're nitpicking on these guys because he is a 5-star and the number one cornerback recruit. But that shutdown corner speed in the pass game, especially against the deep ball. Okay, like I did see some times where guys get by him. Now he was fast at catching up, but and being able to make the tackle. But these guys were able to get by him and make a catch. So that speed, that ability to flip the hips, in terms of a deep ball against a really elite receiver, he's going to need to work on it a little bit. But other than that, the guy is, again, we're nitpicking a bit. He is, I'd love to have him looking at Clemson, but I'm sure we've got our fair share. Commitment date for him around 1 p.m. on January 4th, 2020. That is also the Army All-American Bowl that he will be committing at. Keely Ringo, 5-star out of Arizona. Looking like he's going to go to Georgia, 6'2", 205. Big, big corner.
All right.
You're up, my friend.
All right, I'm going to do another Clemson lean. This guy's Clemson lean about, the crystal ball and about 70% to him, 10% to UF. The UF connection you want to be careful of. His brother is a potential first rounder in this year's draft, CJ Henderson. This kid comes out of Columbus in Miami, Florida. He's 6'3", 6'3 and a half, 180-pound wide receiver. He's number 59 nationally, 10 at his position and 12 in the state. This kid comes, he's got, which is interesting, his 40 time is a 4.55, but he's a track star. They got him in short and long distance track. They said he's got the breakaway speed. What I like the most about this kid, I know that league down there well as a Florida State grad. This is like Miami Central. This is heavyweights in South Florida. And this kid played very, very good competition, scored 3 TDs in the state title game. So that's you got a handful of guys going D1 big-time schools out of that game, I can guarantee you. His thing is he needs to gain some weight and obviously and be able to maintain his speed while he does that. He does do a good job of keeping his arms and catching the ball above his shoulders. So he high points it and hand catches very well. The one thing I did notice about him, he's a long strider. Again, I got another long strider, and he telegraphs his moves a bit when he runs, which is kind of interesting to me. So I look at this guy more as like a deep threat type player. I think he's going to have to put on some weight to be really effective because he's going to have to fight receivers down the field and at the high point of the ball, but the frame is there to do it. And again, he's already shown an ability to do that against pretty solid competition. He's going to be going to the All-American Bowl too as well, and we'll announce on the 4th. He's got a time slot, 12 p.m., which I think you said the game was at noon, so maybe he's going to be right before the game starts. Might be an announcement.
Right before, yep.
Lot to like about this kid. He did, just something to keep an eye on, he did have an unofficial and an official visit in November with Florida. So worth watching, but Clemson did get the last visit this weekend on the 13th, or we'll get it this weekend on the 13th with him when he does an official visit there. So that's a good sign for Clemson getting the last look before he goes and makes that commitment in January.
Nice. So just not to backtrack, but I wanted to I like the comp thing. So the young man I just spoke about, Keely Ringo, the Georgia projection, his comp is to Jamel Dean of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
You-
is what you gotta-
and
he
I-
is, and he too is like an elite track and field guy, which kind of that makes me wonder about the. My concern is his speed against those elite wide
Yep.
receivers. But
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, you got to have a little knowledge with some of these comps they use.
Yeah.
I know who this guy is, but might not be household to most people. The comp for Xavier Henderson is Stephen Hill from the Carolina Panthers.
Oh yeah,
So
didn't he play for Georgia Tech? I
He
think
might have. Yeah,
he
that
played
sounds
at
that
Tech.
sounds right.
I think he played at Tech.
So that's again, it's
He's a wideout, right?
yeah,
big wideout.
Yep, it's a
Yep.
style of game.
Yep.
Actually, no.
Yeah, Georgia Tech.
Oh, he did go to Georgia Tech, but that guy was from Lithonia, Georgia. I didn't know that. Right around the corner.
Yeah.
So interesting. So this kid, he's a prospect. Don't get me wrong. He's a guy that can play. If he goes to Clemson, probably the good part is he'll get a little bit of time to develop. But at the same time, with the way Clemson plays their players, he could see the field early enough to get that experience to learn how to do that. And certainly we know how Clemson has pumped out receivers to the NFL in the last, 7-8 years. So
Yep.
good-looking kid.
Nice. All right, I'll move on. I'm going to bounce around a little bit because I want to save one of these guys for the last because I saved the best for last. So I'm going to move on to I'll stick with the defensive backfield. The number 76 overall prospect. Again, we're going through the top 100, and the guys we're giving you in the top 100 are the only ones outside of the ones that I said were 100% but not verbally committed that don't have verbal commitments. This is the only guys. So like I said, I've got like 6 of them. Dave's got like 6 of them. There's only a dozen guys or so. All right, so the number 76 overall prospect is Dante Manning. He's a 4-star cornerback. He is out of Raytown High School in Kansas City, Missouri. He's a smaller corner, not small, but we just talked about a 6'2" guy. This guy is 6 foot even, 185 pounds. He's the number 6 cornerback overall in the country and the number 2 prospect in the state of Missouri. Right now, they show him primarily as undecided. The teams that are hot on his trail, they show Crystal Ball shows him about 22% for A&M, 22% for OU, 56% undecided. The things I've been reading and hearing, it seemed like Texas A&M was the team, but OU's made a great push as of late. I wonder if that has anything to do with their success on the field.
I would say yes.
Yes. So where's number 8? He's a punt returner as well. So he fields the punts on defense. This kid is fast, very fast. This is another track star type guy. Does really well for a cornerback, keeping his eyes in the backfield in both the rush and pass game. He can flip his hips very well and very smoothly. And if a receiver is able to get by him, that hip flip and that speed, he's able to catch up to fast receivers in that pass coverage. Tackles very well. He is very sound in his technique in terms of breaking down in front of the ball carrier, wrapping up, as opposed to a lot of cornerbacks, tackling low because they're usually smaller against bigger dudes. Didn't see a lot of that. He breaks down, wraps up very well, and what I love most about him, he doesn't just try to hit and take you down. He wraps you up and then drives his legs. He doesn't just leave his feet. He keeps the feet on the ground and drives through you. And that is, it's pretty. It's very pretty. Sheds the block very well in the run support and is able to find the ball and get to it. He's constantly looking for the ball once it's in the air. He definitely is a corner with the ability to turn his head towards the ball when it's in the air. So that's so important nowadays. It's not in college. You don't necessarily have to do that, and might not get flagged. In the NFL, you do, but it's better to learn now. And being able to turn and look for the ball also gives him a leg up on interceptions. I couldn't find a 40 time for this kid. Again, he is a track star. Elite track star. I did find that his 100-meter dash was 10.67, obviously from track. pretty fast.
Not slow. Yeah,
that's
and understand
pretty
that
fast.
especially for skill position players in college football, particularly for guys that play on the outside, track is an awesome thing for them to do. It helps them work on explosion. It's the off season, less of a chance of massive injury and these types of things, but it helps them with explosion. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
We're going to see a lot of this.
So this kid, the only thing I say, I mean, he's 185 pounds, so he can put on a little bit of weight, as long as it doesn't become a detriment to his speed. But I'll be honest with you, this is the number 76th overall rated guy, the number 6 cornerback in the country. All right, and I just told you about Keely Ringo, and he's a 4-star. And I just told you about Keely Ringo, a 5-star, the number 1 cornerback in the country, number 8 overall. And I'll be honest, watching these two, I mean, the other guy does have a lot of size. Again, and I started it out. That's what a lot of these D coordinators are looking for, is those big corners that, also can play that position. But it is, in my estimation, a very thin line between this guy at Ringo, the number 1 cornerback, and this guy at number 6. Even though it's a 5-4-star, I just think his speed and, again, his ability, he's a sound tackler. He's not afraid to tackle. He flips his hips. He's got speed. He's got great eyes. I like this kid a lot. A lot. I think he is this low in the draft, might be underrating him almost. So we'll see. He is out of Missouri, so that state in and of itself isn't necessarily a powerhouse for high school football. The competition isn't like that of the gentleman you talked about that's playing out in Cali against Mater Dei and Bosco, but he's good. He's damn good. So take us to your next guy.
All right, next guy. This is a guy in watching.
Oh, wait. Commitment date. I'm sorry. His commitment date is it is January 2nd, 2020 at 6 p.m. So that's the Under Armour All-American.
And who is his comparable? Did you have that?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Thank you for staying. Again, I think he'll end up being a corner as they have him listed, but he does return punts. I didn't see a lot of his offensive tape, but he's a running back on offense. They compare him to Marshawn Lattimore.
Interesting. All right.
Not Marshawn, the corner from New Orleans.
Right.
Okay?
But that's a good comparison.
Because he's a big corner. He's good. Yeah, real good. That's why I said I look at both these guys, and if the comp for the other guy was, who did I say, Simmons?
Yep.
I mean, not a lot of people know Simmons. A lot of people know Marshawn Lattimore, man.
Yep.
This kid's good. This Dante Manning. So go ahead.
All right, so my next guy is a kid out of Lakeland, Florida. Went to Lakeland High School. Arian Smith, who is a wide receiver. He's number 72 nationally, 14th at his position, and 13th in the state of Florida. I got to tell you, of all the guys I looked at from a film perspective, this guy stood out to me the most. He is about, say, an 88% to Georgia. Georgia is getting the official visit this weekend. Nick Saban did find his way there in December, though, so interesting. This guy just jumped out at me. He, again, we keep talking about track athletes. He's a 10.39 in the 100-meter. There is no 40-yard dash. What really, really stuck out to me with this kid is, I mean, you hear the phrase, if I'm even, I'm leaving. This kid doesn't have to be even close to even, and he's leaving. He has a very, very clean stride, and his separation was actually just kind of blew me away a little bit. And again, he does not play against the most elite talent, but most of his film, he's a 3-phase guy, number 1. So he plays special teams, offense, and defense. So he kind of seen it all, but a lot of his plays were running back plays. And he's only 6'1", 170. I don't know if he's got much room to grow. There's not much on that, like showing that they think he's got growth on this. So he's a middling-sized receiver. But he plays the game very, very I guess when I see him play, I see a lot of purpose in what he does. It's just he looks smooth. And this is a team going to a team like Georgia, who this year we talked a lot about really struggling at the receiver position. He does not, we saw George Pickens was the 5-star recruit they got last year as a freshman this year at Georgia. He's a big kid. He's a body kid. This is the kind of kid that you can put him everywhere and he can wreak havoc. Obviously,
Sort of like Riley Ridley.
yeah, he's got return game ability, but his ball skills are very good. I mean, the only way I can describe what I saw was, of all the kids, he had the it factor. Like, there was just something about the way
A
that
lot of
he
these
looked.
guys do. That's why they're here.
Yeah, but this one like jumped off even more so than the guys that were a little higher rated. He is again, probably playing all these positions would make sense from an evaluation standpoint. One of the things they mentioned was he's a little bit raw from a technical standpoint, but to me that would make sense for a kid playing multiple positions on offense, obviously playing on the defensive side of the ball and playing special teams. I mean, his focus is not laser focused in one shot, and that's something they do mention, is that he's the kind of guy that has such high upside and their words of the evaluation was he's one of the most intriguing prospects of the entire cycle. Let me just say, watching what I saw, it makes sense, because you can look at measurables, and the big thing they said, and this definitely jumped out to me, was there's a lot of times with these quote-unquote track-style athletes, their pad speed is very different than their straight-line speed. This kid, I didn't see any of that. He looked like his pad speed was equal to his track speed. So this guy's a guy that's gonna be fun to watch, and he's in our neck of the woods, so I'm sure we'll get to see him play. Lakeland, Florida, but he's gonna play at Georgia. So So we'll get to see him put the pads on, I'm sure, if he maintains that commitment.
Nice. NFL comp.
His NFL comp, which is a good one, and it actually, I just read it. I didn't see it before, but it makes a lot of sense, is DJ Moore. Carolina Panthers.
Receiver at Carolina from Maryland. Nice.
Yep.
Do we have a commitment date for this young lad?
He did not specify a date, but as of yesterday, tweeted out, I'm signing in December. So my guess is during that signing period time, he will sign on the dotted line, it looks like.
All right. The next guy I'm going to talk about, originally it was a 4-star tight end out of Canada, out of Ontario, Theo Johnson, who was heavily into Penn State, and that was when I looked at it last week. This week, they show him as verbal to Penn State. So he fell off my list. But actually, this guy did jump into the top 100 last week and made a big, big jump in the top 100. And his name is Avante Williams. Mr. Avante Williams, excuse me, is a 4-star safety, and he is out of DeLand, Florida, at DeLand High School. Smaller guy. 5'11", 170 pounds. He's the number 2 rated safety in the country. He's the number 11 recruit in the state of Florida. That just shows you how loaded that state is.
Yep.
He was originally committed to Oregon with a verbal, but I think the reason he popped back on this board and moved up, his play, number 1, and 2, he decommitted not too long ago, I think like a week or 2 ago, and opened his commitment back up. Now, he does still have the crystal ball projection, does still have Oregon in there at about a 20%, also has Georgia and Florida, respectively, at 20%. But the heavy lean right now is towards the Hurricanes at the University of Miami. Makes sense. He's right down there. He wears number 5. He is both a he's not just he's a safety, so he does return punts when they drop back for the defense, but he also is a kick returner on kickoffs, and he's a wide receiver on offense and even plays a little running back. He's a multifaceted young man. He's fast, man. I mean, this is a fast kid. His 40 time doesn't really show it, but he shows it on the field for a safety. His 40 time was 4.72. Again, safety, not corner, though. So you might be able to give a little bit. He could pick up speed on that. Really good, again, with his eyes, keeping his eyes in the backfield, which of all the positions is so important at safety. Very quick closing and run support. He's not afraid to tackle even bigger guys. Again, he's a 5'11", 170-pound guy. He does hit hard, but one of the things that, we see more maybe with the cornerback, and we do see it with safeties, but needs to be more sound with the safety, is did see a few shoulder tackles. Need to make sure, especially as the safety, the position's given that name because he's the safety net, the last line of defense. You better be sure you are a sound tackler and you wrap up more. He's not, and again, another knock on him, I might say, if I'm splitting hairs, he's 5'11", so doubt he'll grow up much more, but he's $170. He'll need to put on some weight. He's not a big guy. He needs to put on some weight, especially at the next level. He seems like I said he hits hard, takes good angles to the ball. He does seem like he likes to hit. But again, hitting and tackling are two different things, right? I mean, you got to be able to wrap up, but he does on the ones he's shoulder tackling. I mean, he's hitting like a freight train. Again, 40 time was 477.2, so maybe need to work on that and cut that down, especially if he looks to go beyond his college years. But is a fluid runner, because I saw a lot of him on the offensive side of the ball too, and he can really cover a lot of ground on the back end, and that's fabulous for a safety. He could be, he's definitely a guy that can cut off half the field, and I saw him on plays where he was on the complete opposite end of the field, a cornerback on the other side, got burned, or maybe lack thereof, just the receiver got the ball and was not in front of him, and this kid just took a great angle and with great speed just was able to chase him down all the way across the field. So so important as the last line of defense, being able to know how to cover that ground and do it well on the back end of the secondary. Looks like the comp they show for him is Budda Baker out of Washington. Now with the Arizona Cardinals. His commitment date is it's saying February 5th, 2020. So that is it says February 2020. So I anticipate
that's signing day.
Signing day, which is February 5th, 2020. Who you got? You got anybody else?
I got Danielle Ngata.
Oh yeah, Danielle Ngata.
He is the number 2 all-purpose back in the country. He's number 80 nationally, and he's number 9 in the state of California. Comes from Folsom Cal, played in Folsom Penitentiary League. No, just kidding. Just Folsom High School.
I'm going to Folsom Prison.
This one's interesting. This guy seems pretty wide open. His highest percent of crystal balling is 22% to Arizona State. So he's pretty wide open. It says 56% of the mix. In that mix is Texas A&M, Clemson, Utah, and Oklahoma State. So he's got a pretty interesting mix of teams that he's looking at. Just to be aware, his brother, Joe, plays for Clemson, is a wide receiver for Clemson.
What's this kid's name again?
Joe Ngata.
Oh, Ngata.
Ngata. Oh, well, Ngata.
He's out of Florida, right?
Ngata.
Or, I mean, California. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ngata is our number 10. And Vlad since 10 or 2. He was the freshman, and then Ngata. Well, Joseph Ngata is his brother. He was out of California. Both 5 stars.
And his other brother, Ariel, plays linebacker at Washington. So he's got 2 brothers in college ball right now. Ngata, sorry. I went Nada.
Well, usually it is, and that's what I called the kid, but then I got corrected by listening to the announcers this year. It's Ngata.
Yeah, he's 5'9", 180, so he's not an incredibly big guy. But what I see out of him is he's the big play threat. He's not going to be a 3-down back in my estimation watching him. He does know how to make defenders miss, and there is talk of him being able to play in the slot, which is very possible because he demonstrated very, very good hands. What he does, he's got very good lateral movement, but tends to do a lot of wiggle east and west. He'll need to develop a one-cut in order to play the back and be able to run the ball effectively. But he's a very natural pass catcher with very good body control. Knows how to go up and get the ball and contort himself and stay focused on that. I'd say he's a huge special teams potential, like a game breaker type that you could put back with the ball with what I saw of him. Just kind of interesting. I think this kid is going to be that guy you line up all over the field to create mismatches, not necessarily put him in the backfield and have him pound. Now, that being said, he has a very I think a pretty high level comp in Christian McCaffrey.
Wow.
Now, Christian McCaffrey obviously is known for being able to catch the ball and being able to run, but I think Christian McCaffrey proved to be able to be a 3-down back in college. I don't know that I really saw that out of him. Again, not trying to take anything away from him, but you're talking about one of the best players in all of professional football right now, so that might be a little bit lofty, but I can understand the comparison from a style standpoint. Certainly a talented kid, but it's going to be interesting because this kid could go anywhere. And I thought you said that the early signing period ended on the 20th, but maybe it was the 21st because he is scheduled to make his announcement on the 21st of December.
It is, but I think they let it leak over for some of these schools still playing.
Okay. Oh, okay. So he's 12. He's on the 21st of December at 4 p.m. is his announcement. Again, that one's pretty wide open. You got, like I said, you got A&M, you got Clemson, Utah, Oklahoma State, and Arizona State right now, all in the mix for this kid out of California. And obviously, you could see both of his brothers are playing on opposite coasts, so don't necessarily think that one area is a draw versus another.
That's right. All right, nice, good. We'll have to see. Could use another Ngata. Ngata have it. You got any more guys?
I got one more guy.
All right.
Are you done?
No, I have one more, but go ahead. I'll let you go again, back to back, because the guy I have to talk about is just a freak. So I want to.
Well, I kind of have that too. I realized, but the last guy on my list you did give me was a 5-star.
Nice.
And
go ahead. He is the number 1 rated running back in the country.
Yeah,
correct?
Zachary Evans.
Yep.
Number 14 overall.
This is a big one.
Number 1 running back, number 1 in the state of Texas, which is no tiny state for high school football. This kid's 5'11", 200 pounds. Wow. Like what I saw out of this kid. This kid's going to be, and not trying to jinx anybody, barring injury, absolutely unbelievable, I think, in college. He comes from North Shore in Houston, Texas. Right now, he is a heavy lean to LSU with UGA and A&M pushing, which, UGA is a little out of the mix, but he is in that Houston area, is big on Texas A&M and LSU. Kid runs a 4.51 40, which is, for a kid that size, is pretty spectacular.
How big is he?
200 pounds, 5'11", 200 pounds as a senior in high school. What I really liked, the first couple of shots I saw of him running, and you don't see a lot of this, and a guy that did it but doesn't have the talent of this guy, it reminded me a little bit of Jordan Howard. As a Bears fan, I know him well. Jordan Howard does not have elite really anything from speed and burst. This kid does, but he's very good at putting his hands on the back of his linemen and staying patient and allowing them to finish their blocks so he can explode off of that. He is elusive, but he's not a guy that's going to shake and bake you with like 3 or 4 hip moves. He's going to make one quick move, and then he's going to blow by you. Again, speed showed up on this kid, which is, at that size, is pretty impressive. Love, too, did not like running out on the sidelines. Liked a little bit of contact. And he was not playing against little kids. Like, sometimes you can just see that he's there. This probably was this thing that stuck out to me second, besides the fact that he was patient. He runs with the ball very high up and tight inside his armpit.
That's good.
And he also
a little Tiki Barber-esque, which he was after
he
his
had to learn it.
Rooskies. Yeah. That's what he had to learn to do, is high and tight. Tight.
And the other thing he did is he switches hands very smoothly to protect the ball. Those are things that running backs, especially that are that elite, usually have to develop that and be trained to do that, because it's easy to get lazy when you're so talented. None of it. And he looks so natural when he runs. I think this is a kid everybody's going to know about after 1 year, wherever he goes. If it's LSU, he's going to get on the field, even there. And I can't remember. What did you tell me? Is Hilaire? Is he eligible to come out?
I think so. Yeah.
You'll know who this kid is no matter what. I don't even care. I don't even care if Hilaire stays, and I'm not saying he'll take his spot, but people will know who Zachary Evans is after next year, no matter where he goes. Just this kid is special. It was interesting to watch him, and it seems like a kid that's very focused on the fundamentals of what he does and doesn't totally rely on his skill, but his skill shows tenfold when you watch it.
Awesome.
Liked him.
And do we have and I'm interested with the patience. What's his comp? What's his NFL comp?
Excuse me. And while I'm pulling that comp up, I will tell you his day. He's going to be at the Under Armour All-American game. So that's the second. He's going to announce at 6 p.m., which would lead me to believe that's the end of the game.
No, it's the beginning.
Oh, that's right. That game is later in the day. His comp, I can see it, but he might have more talent, is Melvin Gordon.
Okay. All right. That makes sense with in terms of getting behind his lineman, put his hands on their back. He does. Melvin Gordon does a lot of that.
Yeah, but let me just say, even when he was patient, once that little seam opened up, the kid's acceleration was awesome, and he was moving.
All right. So the last guy that I wanted to save to talk about is the absolute freak of the guys uncommitted. Okay, this guy. We thought Jordan Birch at 6'5" was big. This kid is 6'7", 261 pounds. As out of Desert Pines High School in Las Vegas, Nevada. He's listed as an athlete. Again, 6'7", 6'7.5", 261. A 5-star recruit and the number 10 overall prospect in the country, Mr. Darnell Washington. He's listed as the number 1 athlete in the country. He's listed as the number 1 prospect out of the state of Nevada. This boy is massive, okay? And for you dog fans, you should be loving life. He is right now a heavy lean in the crystal ball projections at 83% to Georgia. It also has Bama in there at about 8% and an undecided at 8%. Again, this guy, incredibly massive. His junior year, he wore number 13, but his senior year, he wore number 1. He plays tight end on offense, plays defensive tackle on defense. I even saw him come in as punter in a game and punt the ball from his team's 45 down to the opposing team's 5-yard line, a 50-yard just knocker, and it hit probably right before the 5 and fell dead. I mean, incredible athletically. His 40 times about a 4.8, but again, he's a big guy. He's a tight end. He doesn't need to be a speedster. So let's talk a little bit about him, though. Big body guy, comes off the line well, deceptive with his speed. Even though it's at that 4.8, he's being that big, has the long strides you talked about with some of your prospects. So he has deceptive speed, has great hands, takes hits very well when he has the ball in his hands. He's a strong guy, man, and big, strong guy, so he can carry those smaller defensive backs. In terms of his route running ability, he runs really good routes just because he's got those long strides and he's fluid. It's not sharp routes, but especially in the zone coverage as a tight end, he knows how to find the openings, especially in zone coverage. Like when he's coming across and, tight ends, it's usually that short to intermediate route. He knows how to find that space between your linebacker and your safety and drop in there in the opening to get free for his quarterback. Blocks, in terms of a blocker, blocks very well. He's strong when he gets his hands on defenders. Smaller guys don't stand a chance. I mean, on offense, he just runs over folks. On offense, when he's blocking people, I saw a lot of times he blocks them all the way to the ground. And it doesn't take much because he's so big and strong. He'll knock them over and they're on the ground, especially if they don't have a good first step and he gets the advantage. On defense, like I said, he plays defensive tackle. He uses his long arms and hands very well in terms of extension once he gets his arms on defenders, but also those long arms in the pass game. He gets them up and, being a pass catcher as a tight end, he knows, he finds the ball with his arms and hands. Saw several where he's able from the D tackle position just to throw it up, bat balls down, even ones that he batted up and was able to find and pick off. On defense, I said he runs over folks. Well, he does the same when he's on at D tackle. I mean, he just pushes the pocket. He gets his big mitts on offensive linemen, and he just extends those arms and starts driving them into the backfield, into the quarterback. So,
seems like everybody's got him tied into the tight end role. But
I think he'll play the tight end role.
Okay.
I could see him playing the tight end role. His comp is Ricky Seals-Jones. I actually think he'll be better than that because he does seem to have some blocking ability, whereas these tight ends nowadays, a lot of them schools look for more of that athlete, but it is so beneficial if you can have one that's also a solid blocker. They don't have to be phenomenal, but is solid. I think he'll fit in better as a tight end, even though he's listed as an athlete. He does play D tackle. He's a freak, man. I mean, if he were to be on the defensive side of the ball, I'd almost see him more them kicking him out to defensive end, even though he might not have that speed, just his length and be able to collapse the pocket from that side. But I think he's Georgia has historically had some really good tight ends that are like this guy, that are solid blockers and not maybe phenomenal route runners, but good route runners with good hands that can catch the ball, move the chains type.
Well, they've hit some huge recruits. I remember Orson Charles was the number one tight end. Then they got Nada, who was the number one tight end. They got some good guys.
Yeah, tight end's a big position. I anticipate that's where he'll be. I think that's where he'd be best used, just because of his athletic ability with the ball in his hands. I mean, he is a big dude. We talked in our good, bad, and the ugly for the NFL recap about Mr. Kittle carrying guys. I mean, I saw some plays, again, competition, they're smaller. This kid is out of the state of Nevada, so there's not a ton of competition, but there's some. I think modern day that's where it is. So, but I do anticipate he'll be a tight end. They'll put him on offense. Big body guy, like I said, freak, 6'7", 261, 5-star. Commitment date is he's also in the Under Armour All-American game, so it shows 5 p.m., so before the game on January 2nd.
Well, it'll be neat to see him play in that game. Even though the offenses can be a little bit sketchy, they'll certainly body that kid up and see what he can do against some big boys.
Impressive. So that's going to round out the guys in the top 100 that aren't committed. It went over an hour a bit, and coupled with our intro, talking probably about $1.30. Sorry, but important. Listen to it. We'll make sure we make note of it in the Facebook post. Listen to this. This is fun stuff. And we'll continue to keep you posted as we go into next week, as well as talk about the upcoming bowl games. And then once we see some commitments out of these guys, also make sure there's updates there. So good stuff, Mr. Dave. Appreciate the recon.
Thank you. Good work on your end.
We always appreciate y'all listening, and we'll see you next time on the Gridiron. Have a wonderful day.